So over the past several years, the Chinese economy has been growing, the wages have been increasing, and China has not sufficiently moved up the value chain of manufacturing. They're still doing a lot of low-end, labor-intensive manufacturing. And while it's all well and good that the Chinese government has made statements and declarations, we will be out of low-end manufacturing by such and such a date, and we will move up the value chain. It's wonderful that you say these things and you sign it, you stamp it, you announce it on TV, but that doesn't necessarily make it happen. And it didn't happen. So China still has a lot of low-end manufacturing going on, which is labor-intensive. And as the pay for the workers increases, worker salaries increase, it becomes increasingly attractive to relocate a lot of that manufacturing to Southeast Asia. And some of the, let's say, above the labor intensive, the more skilled manufacturing, a lot of that can be done in India. And every country has its problems, right? When you open a factory in Vietnam, they expect you to build a road and build all the power lines that go out to your factory, and you have to invest. It's an incredible investment in basic infrastructure that they'll give you a location that's outside of Hanoi, for example. When you land in Hanoi Airport and you drive to the city of Hanoi, it's actually a pretty long drive. It's I believe about 45 minutes or an hour, and you pass all these factories, and that's where all these factories are. They're way outside the city, and when they give you that land, or when they provide you with that land to build your factory, they then require you to build a road to the factory. You have to build the power lines to the factory, and this all costs an incredible amount of money. And they have a very low reliability, business reliability, contract law enforcement. The corruption perception index is very high. It's one of the most corrupt countries in the world. And so you could, or you're certainly concerned, you're going to build your factory, you build the road, build the power lines, build all these things, and then they scam you or cheat you out of your contract and you lose your factory. And this can happen to you in Vietnam. So Vietnam workers' salary is still about $150 a month, whereas in China, it's more like, let's say, $300, $400 a month. Depending upon how you calculate a month, because with the factory salaries, they're often, when they quote you a number, it's actually quite a bit higher than the actual minimum wage, because they're including the overtime and all of that. So a factory worker in China is still earning about at least double what a factory worker in Vietnam is earning. So, very easy to say, oh, labor intensive business, I'll go move to Vietnam. Well, it's not that simple. You got to build a factory. You got to run power lines. It also takes a lot of time to do all those things. So if you think the coronavirus is only going to take a month or 2 months or 3 months, it may be cheaper just to remain closed for those 2 or 3 months. And I'm not giving advice. I'm explaining what many companies will be doing. Some companies will say, you know what, it's cheaper for me to remain closed. And then when China reopens, I reopen and I continue operating in China. Some companies will say that. Some companies will not. Some companies will say, you know what? It's already a pain in the neck to manufacture in China. I was already thinking of moving. This coronavirus thing pushes me over the edge. Or if I'm anticipating losing 3 months of revenue because of coronavirus, well, 3 months of revenue is enough money to justify moving to Vietnam and setting up my factory there. And I'm saying Vietnam. Maybe Indonesia is offering a better deal. Maybe India is offering a better deal. Maybe Burma. All right. So there's a lot of options. There's a lot of places that factories can move now, and some have. A lot of the garment factories have moved to Cambodia. A lot have moved to Indonesia. Some are trying to move to Burma. Burma, there's apparently still a lot of issues with infrastructure, like power outages and poor internet coverage and things like that. But the point being that all these things, this move, we can quantify what it costs to move there. And there would be economists working with that factory that would say, okay, we've calculated that a move to Vietnam will cost X. And if the coronavirus is going to cost X plus 1, it might be time to go ahead and move to Vietnam. Or it might be time to go ahead and move to Indonesia. And so there's a lot of companies that have been on the fence. A lot of companies have been moving. And then the trade war is another issue that Vietnam, Thailand, some countries in Southeast Asia already have special arrangements with the United States. And they're either shipping tariff-free or with very low tariffs from those countries to the United States. so they can save on the tariff by manufacturing in Thailand or Vietnam. So, if the tariff difference is 9 or 10%, and then you add to that labor cost is double, and then you add to that 2 or 3 months that your factory is closed and you're not getting revenues because of the coronavirus. You add all that together and you go, you know what? I'll move to Indonesia and I'll pay the extra money that it costs to ship things by sea, because Indonesia's an archipelago, and so you can't ship by land. You know what? But maybe the shipping cost is absorbed by all these other costs. So there are companies on the fence that certainly will move. And there are companies that for them, this will be the last straw and they're just going to move. There's other companies that are going to move for other reasons. The trade war is a big one. And now that the United States Congress is passing human rights and democracy bills related to Hong Kong, related to Xinjiang, related to Tibet. And if China doesn't meet certain standards of improvement there, then we're going to bring sanctions against those particular provinces. So again, and I don't know how much manufacturing is happening in Tibet or how much is happening in Xinjiang. But the point being that the business climate in China was already unwelcoming, already difficult, and now it's becoming more difficult. So I would assume that we will see more companies leaving China. I don't know that it's certainly not enough. I don't believe that there will be any kind of China economic apocalypse. I think that all these things are going to hit the economy. They're going to hurt the economy. They're going to knock it down. But I don't think we're going to see the Chinese economy collapse. I keep getting people asking me that. Are we going to see a collapse? Is everybody in mass exodus? Like, no. I mean, these are all negative things. Negative things happen, and the economy goes down. It takes some hits. They probably won't see the GDP growth that they wanted to see this year. And it's going to be a benefit ultimately for Vietnam and for Thailand and for Indonesia and some of our allies in Southeast Asia. And hopefully some of the manufacturing will shift to there. And so we just don't know right now what the impact is going to be. As I said, it's going to be bad. It's going to be negative. How bad, how negative, how much of it can recover, because China's economy can take just massive hits and recover very quickly. It's a very resilient economy. They made it through the global financial crisis. They made it through SARS. They'll make it through this as well. Again, everything depends on how severe the virus is going to be and how long it lasts. And at this point, we don't know either of those. All right. Sometimes I feel like in these reports, I'm raising more questions than I'm answering, but that's my job. Okay, and that's it for this installment of China Economic Research. I am Dr. Antonio Graceffo, coming to you from Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter. You can pick up my books on Amazon.com. I've got 3 books on the Chinese economy, and I have a couple of books on martial arts and wrestling. I also wrote a comic book. If you're into comic books, maybe you want to check that out. Follow me on Twitter. I tweet about the Chinese economy, about the Mongolian economy, but I got to tell you, I do economic research all day. I teach economics at the university. My head gets full of economics, and I blow off some steam. I like to tweet about, I like old movies, 80s TV shows, 80s music, toys, action figures from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, G.I. Joe, Star Wars, whatever it is. And I love Marvel, especially Captain America. So if you enjoy reading about that stuff, you can follow me on Twitter. If you don't enjoy reading about that stuff, you can still follow me on Twitter and just follow the economic stuff. All right, Dr. Antonio Graceffo from Ulaanbaatar. Stay safe. Stay well.